Hello everyone, and welcome back to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I never believed in ghosts, or demons, or whatever the hell people whisper about when they talk about the things that lurk just outside the firelight. I thought that stuff was for suckers. The kind of people who jump at creaking floorboards and blame the wind when their door swings open in the night. But then I spent a weekend at my uncle's cabin, and I learned that some things don't care whether you believe in them or not. It was deep in the woods, miles from the nearest town. No Wi-Fi, no cell signal, just a tiny, one-story structure surrounded by trees so thick they swallowed the light. I had gone there to clear my head. City life had been wearing me down. Traffic, sirens, endless noise. I wanted silence. I got it. And then I got something else. The first night started normally. I made a fire in the little stone fireplace, cooked up some canned chili, and cracked open a beer. The quiet felt good. Heavy, but in a comforting way. By 10 o'clock, I was in bed, bundled under an old quilt, listening to the wind move through the trees. Sleep came easily. Then, at 1:33 a.m., I woke up. At first, I wasn't sure why. I lay there, heart beating slow, groggy, my mind reaching for the tail end of a dream I couldn't remember. Then I heard it. Creak. Footsteps. Right outside. Slow, steady pacing on the wooden porch. Back and forth. Back and forth. I stared at the ceiling, my pulse picking up. Probably an animal, I told myself. A raccoon. A fox. Something small. Creak. Creak. I turned my head toward the window. The curtains were open just a crack, but outside was nothing but blackness. A moonless night. No streetlights out here. I reached for the flashlight I'd left on the nightstand, clicked it on, and aimed the beam toward the window. Nothing. The footsteps stopped. I held my breath. Waited. Knock. 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 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the front door. A spike of cold fear shot through my chest. No one should be out here. No one knew I was here except my uncle, and he was 3 states away. I sat up, my ears straining. Silence. Then, scratch, 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 like nails running down the wood. I swallowed hard and forced myself to move, padding barefoot across the cold wooden floor. Every step felt like a bad decision. My body screamed at me to stop, to turn back, to hide under the covers like a child. But I had to look. I pressed my eye to the peephole. A shadow stood on my porch. Not a person, not an animal. A humanoid figure, tall and impossibly still, darker than the night itself. No features, no eyes, no face, just a shape that should not have been there. I stumbled back, ball rising in my throat. My skin burned with wrongness, like I was looking at something I wasn't meant to see. And then, knock, 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 from the back door. My breath caught in my throat. That wasn't possible. There was only one entrance to the cabin. The back door was locked. There was no way anything could have moved that fast. I bolted to the bedroom, slammed the door shut, and shoved the nightstand in front of it. My heartbeat pounded in my ears. Outside, the pacing began again. Back and forth, back and forth. Then came the whispers. Soft, indistinct. Right outside the bedroom window. I squeezed my eyes shut, curling into myself like a child. The whispering didn't stop. I stayed awake all night, When the first slivers of gray light seeped through the curtains, the noises finally ceased. I waited another hour before working up the nerve to open the bedroom door. The cabin was silent. The front door was still locked. And yet, when I stepped outside, I saw no footprints. But something had been here, because carved into the wooden railing of the porch, as if scratched by long, jagged nails, were 4 words. "You let me in last time." My stomach twisted. I had never been here before. Or at least, that's what I thought. Story 2. I rented the cabin because I needed to be alone. No internet, no distractions, no buzzing city noise creeping into my skull like static. Just me, my thoughts, and a blank page waiting to be filled. The owner was an older man, wiry, with deep lines on his face like he'd spent too many years squinting into bad memories. He handed me the key, his fingers rough and dry like bark. Before I could turn away, he cleared his throat. "Don't go up to the attic," he said. His voice was flat, casual, but there was something beneath it. Something tight. I smiled. "I won't." He didn't smile back. The cabin was small but cozy. The kind of place that felt untouched, like it had been sitting here, waiting for a long, long time. A single bedroom, a fireplace, an old wooden desk where I planned to write. The air smelled like dust and pine. The lake out back was still as glass, reflecting the gray sky like an old mirror. The first night, I lay in bed listening to the silence. Real silence. The kind you forget exists when you've lived in a city for too long. No cars, no voices, no hum of electricity. Just the wind in the trees and the steady rhythm of my own breathing. Then I heard it, a soft thump from above me. I told myself it was nothing. Old houses settle. Wood expands and contracts. It was probably a bird nesting in the rafters. Then came another thump, louder. I turned on my side, pulling the blanket up to my chin. My pulse had picked up, but I refused to let my imagination get the best of me. I closed my eyes. The next sound wasn't a thump. It was a dragging noise, slow and deliberate, like something heavy being pulled across the attic floor. I sat up, my breath shallow, my ears strained against the quiet. Silence. Maybe a raccoon. Maybe a tree branch scraping against the roof. Maybe. I didn't sleep much after that. The second night was worse. The sound started earlier, just as the sun dipped below the trees. Thump, thump, drag. I lay in bed, eyes wide, staring at the ceiling. I told myself I wouldn't check, that it didn't matter, that I was being ridiculous. But then came the whispering. Not words, not really, just a low, breathy murmur, curling through the cracks in the floorboards above me. I couldn't take it anymore. The attic door was at the end of the hallway, a small, square wooden door with a tarnished brass knob. Locked. I should have left it alone. I should have listened to the old man. Instead, I searched the cabin, my hands shaking. In the kitchen drawer, beneath a pile of rusted utensils, I found a small iron key. It fit. The door groaned as it swung inward, revealing a narrow staircase. The air was thick, heavy with the scent of rot and dust. I lifted my flashlight, and the beams swept over the space. The attic was empty, except for the rocking chair. It sat in the center of the room, an old wooden thing with a high back, its paint peeling like dead skin. It was rocking, just slightly, just enough. I hadn't even stepped inside. The flashlight flickered, and the room seemed to darken around me. I turned to go. I want to go. That's when something grabbed my ankle. A hand, cold, thin fingers like brittle twigs wrapped around my skin, squeezing tight. I screamed, kicked. The grip loosened, and I stumbled backward, slamming the door shut so hard the whole cabin seemed to shake. I didn't sleep. I didn't move. I sat in the living room with my bags packed, waiting for the sun to rise. At dawn, I left. Days later, I called the owner. I had to know. His sigh was heavy, resigned, like he'd had this conversation before. No one stays past 2 nights, he said. I gripped the phone tighter. What? He hesitated. Then, years ago, a man lived there. His wife, she was sick. In her mind, he kept her locked up in the attic. Said it was for her own good. A pause. She starved to death, he said quietly. By the time someone found her, there wasn't much left. My throat felt tight, and the rocking chair. A longer pause. She used to sit there, looking out the attic window, waiting for him to come back. I hung up. I told myself I wouldn't think about it anymore, that I'd forget. But some nights, when the wind is just right, I swear I could still hear it. Thump, thump, drag. Story 3. I don't talk about that night. Mark doesn't either. We made an unspoken pact to forget it, to let it rot in the dark corners of our minds where bad dreams and childhood fears live. But some things don't stay buried, do they? Some things claw their way back up. And tonight, I feel it stirring again. It happened 2 summers ago. Mark and I planned a weekend in the woods, a simple getaway. Just 2 guys, a cabin, a case of beer, and a weekend of fishing and bad jokes. It was supposed to be easy. The cabin was supposed to be ready for us. But when we pulled up that Friday evening, something was wrong. The first thing that hit me was the smell. The air was thick with something old, something dead and forgotten. It was a stale, woody stench with an undercurrent of rotting leaves and damp earth. It smelled like a place that had been left to decay for years, even though the owner had assured me over the phone that the place was well maintained. The second thing was the silence. The woods should have been alive with the sounds of crickets and distant owls. But there was nothing. No wind, no rustling leaves, no life at all. Mark noticed it too. Dude, this place is giving me the creeps, he muttered, hoisting his bag onto his shoulder. You sure this is the right cabin? I pulled out my phone, checked the confirmation email. Yeah, I said, though my voice felt thin in my throat. This is the place. We stepped inside, and it only got worse. The air inside was freezing, colder than the night outside, and everything was wrong. The wooden chairs and table were covered in a fine layer of dust. The fridge, which the owner had promised would be stocked with food, was empty. Not just empty, bone dry, no sign that anything had ever been inside it. And then there was the fireplace. A pile of blackened logs sat inside, burned down to brittle husks, like someone had lit a fire. But when? The dust on the furniture said this place had been abandoned for years. But the fireplace told a different story. Mark rubbed his arms and shivered. I don't like this, man. Feels like a place where bad shit happens. I laughed, but it came out weak. It's just old. We cracked open a few beers and tried to shake it off. The unease, the cold, the feeling of being watched. It didn't work. An hour later, we heard the footsteps. Soft, deliberate. coming from outside the cabin. Mark and I locked eyes. Neither of us spoke. The fire crackled. The footsteps came closer. Not heavy like boots, lighter like someone walking barefoot. I turned off the lantern. The cabin fell into darkness. And then, from the trees, a voice. Not supposed to be here. A whisper. Faint. Female. But stretched. Warped. Like it had traveled too far to reach us. I felt something cold slide down my spine. I grabbed my flashlight and stepped onto the porch. And that's when I saw him. A man stood at the edge of the clearing. Not moving. Not speaking. Just watching. His face was shadowed, but I could tell something was wrong with him. He was off. The way he stood, too still, too rigid, like a mannequin dressed in old, tattered clothes. Mark whispered, "Dude, let's get inside." I nodded. We turned, and the man moved closer. But he didn't walk. His legs never moved. He glided toward us. Mark cursed, yanked me back inside, and slammed the door. We locked it, bolted the windows, sat there, holding our breath, waiting, and then knocking. Not from outside, from inside the cabin. Mark grabbed my arm, squeezing so hard it hurt. His eyes flicked toward the hallway. The bedroom door, the one we hadn't opened yet. A slow, rhythmic knock. Knock, knock, knock. I held up a hand, waited. Knock, knock, knock. Mark whispered, "We need to leave. Now." I nodded. We grabbed our bags, rushed to the truck. My hands were shaking so badly. I dropped the keys twice before shoving them into the ignition. I didn't look at the cabin as we sped away. Didn't look at the trees. But Mark did. And I'll never forget what he said. As we peeled out onto the dirt road, he whispered, voice shaking, "They're standing in the trees." I didn't ask who they were. I didn't want to know. We drove for an hour before stopping at a gas station. Inside, under the buzzing fluorescent lights, we finally breathed again. Shaking, I pulled out my phone and called the cabin owner. When he answered, I told him everything. How the place had felt abandoned, the man in the woods, the voice, the knocking. He was silent for a long time. Then he said something that still keeps me up at night. "Where did you say you stayed?" I frowned. "The cabin on Hollow Pine Road." Another pause, longer this time. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, he said, "Son, that cabin burned down 5 years ago." I felt my stomach drop. "No, we were just there." We. The line clicked dead. Mark and I never spoke about that night again. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night, I think about that bedroom door, the one we never opened. And I wonder, what would we have seen if we had?